Hi, welcome to Upstairs on the Square. I'm Chef Stephen Brand, and today we're going to be making spaetzle. And not just any spaetzle, but cocoa spaetzle. I love making spaetzle because I love the process of cooking with my hands and making doughs. We're going to start right here with, this is a mix of cinnamon, clove, caraway, and allspice that I've briefly toasted in the oven. And we're just going to grind it up nice and fine. If you don't have a great spice grinder, you could use a mortar and pestle, or you could actually take a heavy-duty Ziploc bag and bang it with a pot. And just make sure to bang it really hard so it's as fine as it can go. So we're going to begin our dough with 2 cups of milk, in the blender. You can use a drink blender if you don't have a food service blender. And into that we're going to put 1 tablespoon of our spice mix, 2 tablespoons of salt, kosher salt preferred. We're going to add cocoa powder as well. This is Valrhona cocoa powder. It is really delicious stuff. And we're going to add 6 or 7 tablespoons, depending on how strong you like it. I usually do 7. And we're going to blend it. Now comes the fun part. We are going to take our mixture of spices, salt, cocoa, and milk, pour it into a bowl with 12 eggs. We get our eggs from the country hen, or any good farm fresh egg will do, at room temperature. You always want to use room temperature eggs when making doughs because they're a little more viscous and will incorporate easier. So there we go. And now to make the dough, we're going to take our flour right here. We're going to use about 6 cups of flour. And I always have some flour nearby in case it takes a little more, because some days it takes a little more. And I always sift my dry ingredients because you can never have a smooth dough without sifted flour. Make a little well in the bottom. And you just sort of mix around the edge of the well, incorporating the dry ingredients into the wet. You could do this in a KitchenAid mixer, a countertop mixer, if you wanted. Certainly save you some elbow grease. You see it starts to come together after a minute. All right, now this sort of looks like wet mud and not sort of like dough. So what we're going to do is add some more flour. It's much harder to incorporate liquid into solid, so that's why we always try to add flour and not add milk, if you will. All right, so there's definitely some resistance. You can feel it's starting to hurt the wrist a little, which is a good thing, actually. And this guy Mike that I used to work with in New York used to make me mix my spaetzle until I could draw it up to my eyes without it breaking, like that. So it takes about 5 minutes. All right, there you go. Comes right up to your eyes without breaking. That's how you know you're done. What we're going to do now is transfer this into a smaller container and cover it for about 20 minutes and let the flour completely incorporate with the eggs. I like to cut 2 bones for 1 person, and then for a tasting menu, I will generally cut 1 bone. Sort of looks sexier with one bone, I think. And there we go. We are going to cook our venison now. What I'll generally do is get a pan on your stovetop, nice and hot. And it's okay to heat a pan with nothing in it. My father always told me that you had to have something in the pan in order to have heat on it. It's just not true. So there you go. You're wrong, Dad. So we'll season this liberally with kosher salt, aggressively, I would say. I don't really season meat so much as salt it, depending on the method of cooking. If we're searing, then I really salt it because it will help develop a nice crust, and some of it actually comes off in the oil. So a liberal amount of salt and some white pepper. We're going to use canola oil to cook, and we're going to use a little bit of butter to finish. And I'll show you what I mean in 1 second. So we add the canola to the pan. When it shimmers, we know that it's hot enough. Sort of shake it back and forth, and you'll see it almost looks a little gelatinous when it's ready. We'll put that right down. Sort of give it a gentle press. And the best thing that you can do while searing meat is to let it be for about a minute. Don't pick it up. Don't shake the pan. Don't move it around. Just let it be. So here we are letting it be. If anything, maybe I'll press it a little sometimes. Sometimes an air pocket can develop under it. Maybe just give it a gentle press. It'll come along. It's been about a minute. Let's have a look. We're getting there. Not quite yet. All right, so right about now, I'm going to take about 2 tablespoons of butter and a sprig of rosemary. Rosemary goes on top, and the butter goes in the pan. The butter is going to brown up and sort of get nutty and allow for the crust to become a little more aggressive while it's in the oven. So obviously, if you're home, you want to use an oven-safe pan. Or you can cut it thinner and just do it on the stovetop. While the venison's in the oven, let's make some spaetzle. We have our dough that's been resting, and I have a perforated hotel pan here. If you don't have this, you could use colander, or you could borrow one from a friend. So we'll place that right on top of a bowl of a pot of boiling salted water. And I usually do my spaetzle in small batches so that you can allow, so it doesn't cool down the water too much. And basically, we're just pressing it gently through the holes. That smells good. You can see how it falls through. Sort of drips and grabs and looks sort of funny, but it tastes really good. Now over here, I have ice water. And I have another, I'm going to take the spaetzle out and put it into the ice water. And then when it's done cooling down, I'm going to drain it to get the water off of the spaetzle. And then what we're going to do is saute it and make it crispy. You can see they just about triple in size while they're in the water. About a minute or so, it's done. We'll take it out, cool it down. Now we'll drain it completely. All right, let's finish the dish. To bring it all together, we're going to rest the venison briefly, which, just to say when it's done, and it is, I will, now I only seared it on one side, if you noticed, and that's because generally meat is more tender when you don't sear it, but it has a different flavor when you do. So what we do is just sear one side really hard and let the other side stay nice and soft. So What I like to do with the venison or any meat that I sear and then finish in butter is rest it in that butter. So even though we're not searing the other side, we're going to sort of let it hang out in that brown butter goodness that we've created. So there we go. Venison's resting. Our pan is getting hot for our spaetzle. But we're going to start with just a little bit of canola oil. As soon as that's as hot as you feel comfortable having it go, we can add some spaetzle. Now, when sautéing, I always let the oil pool down at the bottom of the pan, and I add whatever product I'm sautéing at the top. And that way it prevents me from, keeps me away from, getting splashed, burned, and whatnot. So we're going to immediately salt the spaetzle to sort of cook the salt into the dough. Now, you may ask why we didn't add all the salt at once at the beginning. And that's because salt tends to make doughs tough. So we're adding it now. It looks a little dry in there, so I'm going to add a little butter. A little nugget right in there. There we go. And you can see it's already starting to fry up and brown nicely. I've never seen any other technique used for spaetzle other than one we're doing now. It's just to cook it like pasta and then saute it. It's not like gnocchi where you can saute them or you can bake them. Or I really wouldn't bake spaetzle. I would just saute it and definitely serve it with roasted meat. So here we go. You can see they're starting to plump up again. We are going to add a little bit of the spice mix that we started with, just to sort of reintroduce the flavors. And we're going to hit it with some cocoa as well, just to reintroduce that flavor. I'd say maybe about a half a teaspoon, maybe a quarter teaspoon of the spice. All right. And we are ready to go. All right, so our dish at the restaurant here begins with parsnip puree, which are peeled parsnips, cooked in cream, seasoned with salt, and then pureed smooth. And we keep it covered because it develops a skin over the top that isn't so desirable. So we're going to place a nice dollop there and then form it with the spoon. All right, so we'll take our spaetzle. A little pile of spaetzle. Now, if your meat had been resting for longer, you might want to pop it back in the oven for a moment. But this is still nicely warm. Maybe I'll just sort of baste some of the butter over it to give it a nice shine. I think Scandinavia serves lingonberries with spaetzle traditionally. So what we've done is made a lingonberry compote with vanilla beans. So the idea is when you push the vanilla and lingonberries with the spaetzle, it creates sort of a chocolatey flavor with the vanilla, the sweet, the bitter, the spices, and it really does sort of taste chocolatey. So we'll lay some of that down. All right. This is a little bit of demi-glace that we made with venison bones and bacon and red wine. And that's basically it. We'll put a little sprinkle here and there with a little bit of baby basils, little baby shiso, and call it a day. And this is our roasted rack of venison with cocoa spaetzle, vanilla scented lingonberries, and creamy parsnips.